Welcome back to Inside the Box, where I talk about how you can make money with the skills and tools you have, things that are already in your box. I share eBay tips with you guys and my journey and learning experience with eBay. So if that's interesting to you, please subscribe to my channel and follow along. Today I wanted to talk about returns and buyers asking for refunds when you send them items. I want to preference this by saying I started selling in the summer of 2019 and it is now spring 2020. And returns are few and far between for me. I've only had 3, and each one was a little different. The first one, I didn't have a return policy set up. The second one, I did have a return policy set up, and it actually saved me from having to refund the buyer. The third one was a conversation between me and the buyer, and I will share some screenshots throughout this video of a few of these stories. So when I started eBay, I was scared of returns, so I decided I didn't want to have a return policy. I just said no returns, no returns. What I didn't realize is if a buyer complains a certain way, eBay will always ask you to refund them. The first one I don't have any screenshots for, it happened so long ago, but I'll tell you this story. I started selling on eBay and I wasn't sure how to price things, so I sold a bunch of baby clothes and I started at a 99-cent auction, and of course there was only one bidder and I didn't get the shipping right, so it ended up costing me money to send this item to the buyer. And the buyer got the item for like $4 or less. So even if something went wrong, I didn't think that they would ask for a refund, but they did. They said that the package arrived torn and there were only 2 items in there when there should have been 7. And I don't know if the buyer was telling the truth or not, but because of how they complained, eBay was telling me I had to refund the buyer. Now that I know a little bit more, maybe I could have called and explained the situation to eBay better and not have refunded the buyer, but I didn't at the time. So I ended up refunding the buyer. And so it cost me extra money to do that. And so not only did it cost me money, but I didn't get the item back to resell it because I didn't have a return policy set up where the buyer would have to ship the item back to me. So I decided to go ahead and just set up a 30-day return policy, hoping that, you know, there's kind of some sort of psychology there that the person says, oh, I can open this in 30 days or I can return it in 30 days, and then when day 30 comes, I'd forget and not return the item. I don't know if that works or not, but with that idea, you know, I opened that up and I said the buyer had to return the item. Well, in one of my previous videos, I talk about what sold in February 2020, my highest profit items, and one of those items was this outdoor faucet spigot. And the buyer got it, and they actually opened a return after I made that video about what sold. They actually opened a return, and they said that the spigot didn't fit. And I was okay to refund them the money, but I did want the item back to try and resell it because it was a high profit item, and that was in my return policy. So in order to get the refund, the buyer would have to ship the item back to me, and the buyer would have to pay the shipping. And so the buyer opened the refund, but they never shipped. It was waiting and waiting and waiting for buyer to ship item, waiting for buyer to ship item every time I checked it. And then that 30-day window passed. I was gonna call eBay and try and close the case, but before I got to it, eBay sent me a message and said they closed the case because they noticed that the buyer had never returned the item. Using the return shipping label they offered the buyer, but they leave a little bit of a window open for the buyer to argue that the case shouldn't be closed because they sent the package by different means versus using the return label. So they've left that window open for the buyer. But as of now, I haven't had to refund the buyer because of my return policy. Whereas in the first example, I didn't have a return policy set up and I had to refund the buyer and I didn't get my item back. In this case, I would have gotten the item back, but since I didn't, I could keep the money and I didn't have to refund the buyer. So that worked out. The third case, I felt really bad about this one, guys. I sold these glass goblets and I was in a hurry and I'd run out of bubble wrap and I was lazy in my packing. And if you're selling glass, you should wrap it up in bubble wrap, put it inside of a box and put that box inside of another box, and then you can mail that box to your buyer. But I was in a rush. I didn't want to go to the store to buy more bubble wrap. I was like, I've got grocery bags, let me just pack this. And I had some little pieces of bubble wrap stuff that I threw in there, and I thought I wrapped the glasses okay, and I put them in a box and I sent it on its way. I didn't think twice about it. I was in a rush doing it. And I get a message from the buyer, and the buyer took pictures. They'd opened the box and they sent me a message and they're like, hey, what do we do about this? One of the glasses was broken. I felt really bad. Now, had the buyer gone through the return policy, you know, they would have had to pay for shipping to ship the glasses back to me to get the refund, but they just messaged me and said there was a problem, and they were really honest about it. Because they had good integrity and showed me pictures, I was more willing to work with them and believe the story and help them out. You know, I felt bad because I took the blame for that. I packed it wrong. I don't even blame the post office for that. It's the way I packed it. And so I said, okay, we'll just make this easy. I'm going to give you a full refund. And I explained how PayPal takes a little bit of time sometimes to refund that money, but I sent that message to the buyer, and they were really sweet. They're like, well, that's really nice of you. You know, we would have accepted half since one of the glasses is still fine. And that was sweet of them. But I ended up refunding them anyway. So I learned a couple things. Take your time when you're packing stuff. It's worth it, because if you don't, you might have to refund people money. If you want to keep your money, take time packing stuff and pack things well. I've also learned that if you're a buyer and you're watching this and you have a problem, reach out to the seller and be kind. There's other return YouTube videos out there that I've watched where the seller and the buyer are just back and forth, and they're nasty to each other. They're mean and nasty and everything. The buyer's like, this stuff's garbage, blah, blah, blah. Why'd you sell it to me? You didn't describe it right. And the seller gets all defensive. You're a terrible buyer. Anyway, there's a lot of negative back and forth. You guys can go watch those YouTube videos, but that's not going to be my channel. You know, I think that we can get along a lot better if we're kind to one another and move forward that way. And if you're a buyer wanting to return an item, you're gonna catch a lot more flies with honey than vinegar, guys. You really, really will. And if that buyer was mean and nasty and said, you packed this wrong, you broke this, maybe I would have only offered a half refund or told them, you need to follow my return policy and return this to me and pay for that. But because they were honest and nice and kind about presenting the problem, I had no problem giving them a full refund. So there's a couple things to learn from this video. First, you need to set up a return policy. eBay likes it when you do that. You can't be a top-rated seller unless you have a return policy. You can pick how many days are open for the window. I recommend doing 30-day window, and have the buyer pay for shipping. And then the next thing is be kind. Just be kind. And you want people to come back for your business. You know, that buyer that I was kind to them and they were kind to me, they left me a good review, and it's possible that they could return and do business with me. Whereas if I was nasty to them and said, it's not my fault, it's the post office fault, and you know, you already paid for the item, if I was nasty to them, I'd lose their business. Okay, guys, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Thanks everyone for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Good luck selling out there. I'd love to hear your experiences with eBay in the comments below. Please subscribe to my channel if you like content like this, if you want to see what sold videos, or just want to get your wheels turning about different ways you can make money from home or different side gigs you can do. Please subscribe to my channel and follow along. Help me reach 100 subscribers, guys. Thanks.